Hello everybody, this is me T with Hearts and Crafts, and I am here to show you how to put together your mini album that you received in your Mega Make and Take mini album edition. This one is mine. So before we get started, let's be sure that you have the proper tools that is needed to do this. You're going to need either a paper trimmer, or I like to just use scissors, some glue. I like to use my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. Optionally, some ink. I use the Versacolor Umber, but any brown would work. And then you're going to want some foam squares. So let's get started. Inside of your kit, pull everything out. So inside of your kit, you have your ephemera, or also known as your die cuts. And then you have your papers. You should have 4 of them, 4 different papers. And then your mini album base. So I'm going to start by assembling the book itself. So when you received it, you already had them folded on one score line. So what I'm going to do is finish the scoring. So you're just going to go in on each of these. And folding them all inward. And ignore some of my extra score lines. I messed this one up and thought I would use it as my sample. Okay, once you have your 3 pods scored nice and firmly, if you want to be sure they're scored extra well, you can use your bone folder and just go over it. I've kind of played with these a little bit so I know that they're scored well. So you're going to take whatever adhesive you chose to use. You're going to pick up your first one, making sure that your short flap is on the inside and your folded side is on your left. Pick it up, turn it over, and put your glue. Using the Nuvo glue, you don't need a lot. So I'm just going around the edge and a little bit in the center. Not going too far into this edge side so that when you put your next one on, it doesn't come out. Lay it right on top. Now, the most important part of this is making sure that your spine lines up really well. Just like that. Now just let it sit a moment, adhere really nicely. And that is the first part of your book. Pick up the next one, which was your bottom. Put your adhesive all around. Again, making sure that your short flap is on the right-hand side. Lay it down. Pick it up, and again, making sure that your spine lines up perfectly, and just hold it really nicely. And let that dry. So that is all there is to putting together the album base. So let's set this aside. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to put my lid back on my glue. A little hint for you, tip, that when you're done with this, just squeeze a little bit to the top of it. Put the lid on. That takes out any of the air and keeps it from clogging. Now we're going to work on our pages. If you want to use a paper trimmer, go right ahead. You're just going to cut all of these apart. But like I said, I like to use scissors. These albums were made for a non-crafter in mind, so they come together really easily. What I like about these Tim Holtz scissors is the blade is extremely long, so it makes it easy to cut straight lines. You have a little gap in the center, so you're going to want to cut off a little bit on each side. If it's not straight, don't worry about it. No one is going to notice. So we'll set those aside. Now we're going to do our other smaller pieces. So hopefully you're cutting along with me and I'm not just sitting here boring you. And I'm cutting the red off. You can leave it on if you like it. I put it there so you would have easy cut lines to know how to separate these from each other. So your kit has come with everything you need to put this album together, except for I did not give you the craft paper to do your mats. So if you want to do those, then you would go just from your scraps and grab any color you want. I actually forgot to grab some, so I'm sending my husband to my room. Again, we're just cutting everything apart to make it faster for us to assemble. What's nice about the way this album is set up is that your first page is your cover, and then some of the pieces that you'll need for the inside. After that, each page represents one section of pages. And I'll better explain that when we get to that. Okay. All right, so if you take a look at the book, what we've cut, oops, sorry about that. What we've cut is your front cover, your back cover, your side panel, and then on the inside, we've cut the pieces that go there. Now, as I mentioned, each one of these sheets represents a panel. So you'll see that you have this, 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 and that all on this sheet. So let's go ahead and finish cutting everything apart. And you're going to want to keep your pieces together. So on my sample, I inked all of my edges, but on this one, when I'm putting it together, I'm not going to ink it, just so that you can see the differences of when they're put together, and you can better make a decision on which look you like. We're just going to continue to cut all of our papers. Everything is pre-sized for you, so you don't have to worry about not cutting the right sizes. If you get it a little bit smaller like I did here, not a big deal. Once it's all put together, no one is going to notice. I notice I'm a little crooked here, so I'm just going to go in and clean it up. Again, I find it so much easier to cut this with scissors than I do my paper trimmer, but it's all a preference. All right, so we'll set these aside. Oh, let's not lose this little piece. So this album, depending on if you do the mats the same that I did, you can get 18 pictures on here. But there are definitely ways that you can add more pictures if you wanted by doing more flaps, and I'll show you what those flaps look like, or doing less flaps. And that's what I'm going to do on this one, is a couple of less flaps just so that you can see the diversity. So it really is a question of how many pictures you're wanting to get into your book. These make excellent Christmas gifts where you can set it up, assemble everything, and then give it to the recipient and let them add their own pictures. Just give it to them with a tape runner. And you can even mark on the mats, if you choose to do mats, what size picture it holds. This is the second set of inserts. Okay, so those are our next set. And now let's work on our final. If you like making mini albums, but you're often intimidated in putting the album itself together, but you have lots of papers, we do sell the blank cardstocks by themselves to make the sheets. It's a 100-pound cardstock. Everything is pre-scored for you, just as you've received in your kit, and it comes in 3 colors. The light craft, which I have here, a dark craft, which some of you received, and then we also have it in black. This album comes together really nicely with 4 sheets of cardstock, double-sided cardstock, and then your ephemera pack or stickers or, you know, whatever you already have in your collection. You can hear my puppy crying over there. I think a lot of you know that I have a new puppy. Her name is Zoe. We also call her Zozo. She has a neurological disorder and is extremely needy. Maybe before we're done with the album, she'll make an appearance. She usually does. Okay, we have all of our pieces put together. I'm just going to brush away my trash, pull back in my album base, and let's start assembling. Oh, looks like I have a little extra white here. Let me just trim that off. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with our cover. So you're going to take this piece. I like to tap my glue down a little before I get started. Go the same method and lay this down. And just wiggle it in place until it's centered in your book, just like that. So this is what it looks like uninked. This is what it looks like inked. We're going to turn it over, do our back panel the same way. And I don't know if you're noticing that every time I set my glue down, I do just that extra little pump so the air doesn't get back into it and have it get clogged. Okay, now we're going to do our spine. Now I mentioned earlier that lining up your spine is the most important part here, because if your spine is not lined up well, this piece becomes a little bit more difficult to put on. So we're just going to line that up right into the center. And then I like to just hold it on its end, kind of squishing it down a little bit. Whoops. Let's try that again. I don't know why I feel like I'm rushing when I have all the time in the world. Okay. So that looks good. Now we're going to open the book and you're going to do your inside panels. So you'll grab these 4 pieces. What's nice about these pieces is your lights are not dimensional, or not dimensional, they're not one or the other sided, so you don't have to worry about putting it upside down because your lights are going both directions. Now your Merry Christmas piece is directional. That's the word I was looking for, directional. It is directional, so take a look at this before you put it on to be sure your words are going the correct direction. Uh-oh, this one got a little crooked. Sorry about that. Sometimes hard to see when I'm working for the camera's angle, not necessarily my angle. Add a little bit more glue onto this. Let me use this line, the score line on the side to better adjust that. There it is. So that's a good hint. Use, if you are like me, have a hard time lining things up, use your score line as your guide. Okay, so let me show you what those look like. So here is panel 1, and you can see that I've inked it. Here's your center panel. And then your top panel. We'll get to all of the directions next, or I'm sorry, the decorations next. So now we're going to work on your center grouping. So you want to grab these right here. So we're going to start with your largest. None of these papers are directional, which again makes it that much easier. Well, actually I take that back. They are a little directional. So like I said, these albums come together very, very quickly and easily. Everything, as I said, is pretty much pre-measured for you except for your photo mats. And the reason I don't pre-cut your mats for you is I want you to cut your mats based upon your picture sizes. All right, so we just finished this. We have our left, our center, our right, and then our flip. All right, now grab your last 3 papers. I'm sorry, your last 4 papers. And we're going to continue down the same. So here on your large piece, you're going to want to be sure your stripes are going up and down. Okay, so let's take a look. So there's your left, your center, your right, and your flip. All right, so now we're gonna set that aside. We're gonna pull in all of our other pieces that we've already cut apart, and we're going to grab our baggie of ephemera. Let's set our string aside. So what you're going to want to start with is pulling out all of these pieces here. and then your top piece. We'll set those aside. All right, so what I've done here is to give it the depth that you see here. I cut multiple pieces of the tree, glued them together, and then glued them onto the book, so you get the dimensional look without it being really flimsy. So let's go ahead and do that. Making sure it's all lined up really well. Now you'll notice on my kit, it's got a few stray cuts that didn't cut out well. Yours won't have that. Since this is my sample, I used a kit that didn't cut as clean as it should have. But if that ever happens to you, just take your scissors and clean it up. Stack them up nice and straight. All right, then you're going to take your glue, line it up, and stick it right there. And just hold it down. And that's what that is going to look like. All right, now let's open our book and do our next page. So we're going to grab our 2 gingerbread people and put some foam squares on them. Now, I'm not going to fully decorate this. I'll walk you through it. All right, so this mat, if you choose to do that, I didn't include the paper for you, but it is a 4x4. What I think would look nice in this book, if you just put your picture straight down on it, or a little mat, it's up to you. You're gonna put foam squares behind your gingerbread men. Now what I do is you'll see that I can lift my gingerbread person, and I do not take the sticker off of the gingerbread or off of any of my pieces until I put my pictures down, so I can slip my picture right inside of here and then put my gingerbread people down. So those are your 2 gingerbread people. Here you're going to cut a piece of cardstock, any color you choose. Red would be pretty, green, I used craft. You're going to cut this 8 inches long by 3.5 wide, folded in half at the 4-inch mark, then taking your gingerbread panel, gluing it on top, and then gluing it onto this outside fold over panel. Now with your long candy cane piece, I put glue on the 2 sides and down the center. Put my mat there. The reason I did that is if you have extra pictures that you're trying to do, sometimes what I like to do is make like a film strip look and put some smaller pictures there or different things and just tuck it into that pocket. And then here again, the foam squares are not touching the mat, and you'll put this piece down. So that makes up your first 4 pages. Let's turn it over. Okay, so here's your Christmas present, and then your Believe piece. And these are tucked in. I glued on the two sides, and I just tucked in some extra little fun things. You can glue these down later. What could be fun is if you have a long picture, you could stick it here and then your picture there. Two additional presents here. Again, your mats are cut 4 by 4. This one here is 4 by 3.5. This one here is 8 by 3.5, scored and folded at the 4-inch mark. Okay, we have your holiday here. Again, you know, not completely put down for your picture. So with your string, what I did is I took the string, folded it in half, and then just cut it in half. So I have 2 equal parts. To give it this multi-layer, I just take it and wrap it around 3 fingers. Tie it in a knot, and then use that extra piece to tie it on. Again, these are not glued down, they're just tucked into that pocket, and then here's your pucker up. And then your last piece, which is your holly, and then your flip over love, peace, joy, love, peace, and Christmas. And that is how you assemble this book. Couple of things I want to mention is that you want to be sure that you use a wet glue on this, as I mentioned earlier, that I do use my Nuvo to be sure everything comes together nicely. If you have any questions, let me know, and in a minute I will show you some of our other albums that we have in the store. We do have a special going. Everything in the store is 20% off, but if you look at the cover sheet that was included in your packet, you'll see that there is a special bonus code for you for the end of the year. So hang tight and I'll show you some of our other albums.